So this place has had 0 offers?
People seem to be scared off on account of it being haunted and disgusting. After 47 years living here, I decided to move to Orlando to be closer to Disney World.
Herzog's third feature film, and one of his most famous, is Aguirre, The Wrath of God. The film follows the story of Lope de Aguirre, a Spanish soldier, as he travels along the Amazon with a group of conquistadors in search of the lost city of gold, El Dorado. Aguirre, The Wrath of God was filmed on location in the Peruvian rainforest, in parts of Machu Picchu and on the Amazon River. It was the first time Herzog collaborated with actor Klaus Kinski, who he would go on to make another 4 films with. Some things we will look at in more depth about the film is the main character's journey and driving force, the environment the characters find themselves in, the relationship between Herzog and actor Klaus Kinski, and how Herzog used unconventional directing methods to achieve his goals. The film is set in the jungle and incorporates Herzog's man versus nature theme. This is something that he explores throughout many of his films. In Aguirre, the man is Lope de Aguirre and his conquistadors, and nature is the hostile jungle and the natural elements. An example of the struggle between man versus nature is when one of the rafts the conquistadors use to explore the river becomes stuck amongst the river rapids, and the men have to fight against the rapids for a whole night. The jungle also links in with the overall story arc and journey of the film. The jungle is a representation of the impossible journey, as countless people have become lost within it and never made it out. There is a scene within the film where a native prince tells Aguirre and his men, "Now I am in chains, like my people, and I must bow my head. Almost everything was taken from us. I can't do anything. I'm powerless. But I am also sorry for you, because I know there is no escape from this jungle." The character knows that no matter what, Aguirre and the rest of the men are destined for failure. Looking for El Dorado is another impossible journey, as we the audience know that no one has achieved this. And due to the film being based on historical facts, we know that the characters will never arrive there. The film is entirely linear and helps with the story's feeling of moving forward and searching for El Dorado. Everything was filmed in a linear fashion as the film crew and actors moved through the jungle. This did, however, have a toll on the actors and crew. Throughout the filming of Aguirre, Herzog and actor Klaus Kinski's friendship was often tested, to the point where Herzog held a gun to Kinski's head to make him finish acting for the film. Herzog hielt mir die Pistole an den Kopf und meinte, wenn ich nicht für den Film fertig spielte, würde er mich erschießen. Er hatte die Kühnheit, mir das anzutun. Ich, Klaus Kinski. From the start of the filming, they had different opinions on how the character of Aguirre should be presented. Kinski wanted to be a loud madman, constantly shouting, whereas Herzog wanted a quiet, menacing and calculating Aguirre that was slowly growing madder. To achieve this, Herzog would purposefully rile up and anger Kinski before each take. Although this directing method is fairly unconventional and most directors would frown upon it, it achieved the required results and fits in with Herzog's films being known for hyper-realistic acting. He also used many members of the indigenous community to play natives in the film. Incorporating non-actors is another one of Herzog's many traits. We can summarize that Aguirre, The Wrath of God, uses a number of Herzog's signature film traits in true auteur fashion. The theme of man versus nature, the impossible journey as a story arc, the driven madman as the main character, and unconventional directing methods coupled with hyper-realistic acting. Aguirre, The Wrath of God is considered one of the most influential films of all time, and famous film critic Roger Ebert says of Herzog, "His stories begin in a straightforward manner, but their result is incalculable, and there is no telling where they may lead. They conclude not in an ending, but in the creation of a mood within us, a spiritual or visionary feeling. I believe he wants his audiences to feel like detached observers, standing outside time, saddened by the immensity of the universe as it bears down on the dreams and delusions of man."
Film critic Andrew Harris identified 3 characteristics which would be present in the work of an auteur. These were technique, personal style, and interior meaning. When seen through the lens of Harris's theory, The Enigma of Caspar Hauser cements Herzog as one of cinema's most prolific auteurs. The Enigma of Caspar Hauser was released in 1974 and was Herzog's first film to star Bruno Schleierstein, who he would collaborate with again on Strozek. It is based on the true story of Caspar Hauser, a young man who appeared mysteriously in the town of Nuremberg in 1828 without any ability to speak, read, or even walk. Immediately noticeable in The Enigma of Caspar Hauser is Herzog's unique cinematography. Reminiscent of a documentary, this style of cinematography is consistent throughout his body of work. Herzog is known for improvising shots on set and capturing astounding natural imagery quickly and efficiently. It is this use of spontaneous cinematography that often gives his work a poetic quality, and is evident in Caspar Hauser through the numerous shots of the countryside. These shots do nothing to further the story. Instead, they create mood and atmosphere. Andrew Harris defined technique, one of the 3 characteristics of his auteur theory, as a unique elementary flair that a director possessed. Herzog's use of cinematography certainly embodies this. Herzog's choice to cast Bruno Schleierstein as Caspar Hauser furthers the notion of him being an auteur through Harris's theory of personal style. Bruno Schleierstein was born to a prostitute mother and raised in prisons and mental institutions until he was 26 years old, when he was discovered by Herzog and cast in Caspar Hauser and Strozek. On Herzog's choice of actors, film critic Roger Ebert said, "Werner Herzog's films do not depend on acting in the conventional sense. He is most content when he finds an actor who embodies the essence of a character." When asked about Bruno's acting, Herzog said,
Ist ein Mann von phänomenaler Tiefe und Leiden. Es übersetzt sich auf dem Bildschirm wie nichts, was ich jemals getan habe. Übersetzt auf eine Leinwand. Ist für mich der unbekannte Soldat des Kinos.
But Herzog's unconventional use of actors extends beyond Bruno. In Heart of Glass, he hypnotized the entire cast while shooting, with the intention of giving the dialogue a lack of emotion and individuality.
Wird die Zukunft im Untergang der Fabriken ebenso eine Notwendigkeit erkennen?
Herzog's repeated use of unconventional actors cements him as an auteur through Andrew Harris's theory that a director's work should exhibit recurring characteristics of style unique to that director. Incredibly evident in The Enigma of Caspar Hauser is the theme of man versus nature. The townspeople of Nuremberg can be said to represent modern man and the overbearing social pressures of civilization, while Caspar Hauser represents uncivilized man and natural, untamed innocence. In the film, we see the townspeople taunt Caspar by subjecting him to an open flame, simply to see what effect this has on him. Caspar's ideas are ridiculed by the townspeople because they fail to align with what the townspeople deem correct. Here we see modern man attempt to change the nature of uncivilized man, for no purpose but to prove their evolved way of thinking superior. The original German title of the film,
Jeder für sich und Gott gegen alle,
translates to each for himself and God against all, and can be seen as a comment on how individuals treat each other and in greater terms how civilized society treats uncivilized men. Andrew Harris's 3rd characteristic of an auteur's work is interior meaning, which he defined as a vision of the world a director projects into his work. Herzog's use of the man vs. nature theme in The Enigma of Caspar Hauser is a visualization of the struggle of modern man according to Herzog, and is the final aspect of Caspar Hauser that makes it the work of a true auteur.
Certainly among Herzog's most well-known films of the era is Fitzcarraldo. Released in 1982, the film is most infamous for its troubled production, taking a whopping 5 years to make. Fitzcarraldo follows an opera-obsessed European man named Brian Fitzgerald, who lives in a small Peruvian city. His love for opera runs so deep that he devises a plan to build the town's own opera house. In order to fund this, however, he must raise the money via the booming rubber business. In order to fast-track this process, Brian devises a plan to harvest rubber from a virtually impenetrable patch of jungle. All he needs to do to make this work is haul a 320-ton steamboat over a hill from one river to the next, with the manpower of the local tribe. Fitzcarraldo continues Herzog's exploration of his recurring theme, man versus nature. In typical Herzog fashion, the critical sequence was achieved without the use of special effects, something Herzog believed had never been done before, nor would it be attempted again, going as far as to dub himself Conquistador of the Useless. His dedication to hyperrealism brought on a skew of issues for the production, and where most other filmmakers would have walked away, Herzog was determined to achieve the impossible, much like the character of Fitzcarraldo. Easily the biggest blow to the production was the loss of his leading original man, Jason Robards. Robards fell ill with 40% of the film already shot, and doctors in the US refused to let him return. A strange side note, the film originally included a supporting character played by Mick Jagger, who much to Herzog's dismay was also unable to return due to record label obligations. Production was shut down for 6 weeks to regather, investors questioning Herzog's persistence to move forward.
If I abandon this project, I would be a man without dreams, and I don't want to live like that. I live my life, or I end my life with this project.
There was only one other person Herzog knew who could pull off the role of Fitzcarraldo, an actor you may be familiar with from earlier. This film would not have been the same without the inclusion of Herzog's staple, Klaus Kinski. Having caused high tensions on the set of Aguirre, Kinski was welcomed back to the jungle by Herzog, a decision he may have regretted at the time. The almost romantic love-hate relationship between Kinski and Herzog carried over onto this production, made worse by the depressing and isolated Amazonian location. Kinski proved to be just as unpopular with the rest of the cast and crew, particularly with the natives. At the height of tensions, one of the tribal leaders approached Herzog, offering to have Kinski killed for him. I imagine the temptation would have been there for Herzog in that moment. As far as filmmaking ethics go, Herzog definitely crossed the line with Fitzcarraldo. Numerous native extras were injured or worse killed during production, and the extremely isolated location led to 2 plane crashes, resulting in a number of injuries. Risks taken were, by today's standards, beyond comprehension, particularly surrounding the winching of the steamboat. The chief engineer of the production resigned over severe safety concerns which were at odds with Herzog's realist nature. In his final address, the engineer warned up to 30 native workers would be killed if the capstan supporting the ship's weight were to break. Herzog continued despite this, under the conditions that he, the director, would work from the most unsafe point, and that only those willing to take the risk were involved. Herzog was beyond obsessed. It was as if the crazed spirit of Fitzcarraldo had possessed him.
What are your plans when this movie's all over? What are you going to be doing?
I shouldn't make movies anymore. Should go to a lunatic asylum right away.
At many times throughout the production, the events of the film appeared to be reflecting those unfolding in reality. As was the case with the crew of Kinski's character abandoning the expedition due to unsafety, so too were Herzog's crew in real life. Herzog battled against the same forces as his lead character, the most relentless of which being nature. Nature is once again explored thematically by Herzog in this film. He pits man against this unstoppable force in a battle that in most cases ends unfavourably for his characters. His continued exploration of this theme throughout his career is why he is so widely considered an auteur. Herzog's view on nature is grim, in that he looks past its more peaceful side, fully accepting how unforgiving it can be.
I make films because I have not learned anything else. And I know I can do it to a certain degree. And it is my duty, because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are. And we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.